As we have announced at previous Friday forums, City Club has launched its annual spring membership drive. And our goal is to welcome over 100 new members before May 31st, and we're over halfway towards achieving that goal. And we need your help, and City Club is even offering an incentive. All members who recruit a new member by that date will receive a free Friday forum lunch, and the new member will also receive the same gift. Membership in the City Club is also a wonderful graduation gift, and in fact, and based on my own personal experience, I'd recommend that you make this gift while the student is still in college. My daughter's become a regular attendee at Friday forums when she doesn't have class at the City of Portland, and it's a great gift either for graduates or students who are still in college. For those of you who are not members, please consider joining today by filling out a membership card or talking to a staff member, and we'll even waive the $25 membership fee if you do today. Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Portland, Oregon's premier citizens forum. I'm Don Williams, president of City Club. Today's program will continue our primary election series of political debates. Today's debate is between the two leading candidates for mayor of Portland, Sam Adams and Sho Dozono. Our moderator will be KGW news anchor and journalist Russ Lewis. Our forum today is made possible by the generous contributions of our corporate sponsors for this quarter: Zimmer Gunsel Frasca Architects, the law firm of Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt, and Key Bank. We thank them for their support. Russ Lewis, our moderator, will introduce our two debaters and explain today's rules of procedure. Russ is an award-winning journalist. For those of you in our audience at the Governor Hotel who think he's slightly out of focus today, that's because he's usually seen in high definition on KGW Northwest News Channel 8 at sunrise and at noon. Russ received his bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism at New Mexico State University. He was previously an anchor and reporter at Sacramento and has also worked at stations in Tucson and El Paso. In a life-changing experience, he covered the September 11th attack during a 12-day trip to Washington, D.C. and New York City in 2001. His wife is the executive producer of KGW at KGW, and they have two young daughters. And in fact, Russ explained to me that with his 2:45 a.m. wake-up call each day, his 7-year-old daughter has a later bedtime than he does. Before turning the program over to Russ, it's worth reminding everyone that City Club endeavors to facilitate both open and spirited discussion of public issues. And it's therefore important for us to remember we honor both our guests and the process when we're courteous to our debaters and respectful of the ideas and opinions that they express. Russ?
Good afternoon, everybody. Lunch is good, I assume. It's a pleasure to be here at the Governor Hotel in the City Club today. It was 4 years ago, the last time I was involved in the mayoral race. I just wanted to share a quick story. I had a public affairs program on KGW at the time called Viewpoint, And we had the two leading candidates on for a little discussion that day. They were on separately. So after our half-hour discussion with Jim Francesconi and Tom Potter, I remember kind of at the end of the interview, wanted to ask some kind of offbeat questions, get a feel for the candidates. Sometimes these produce some fun answers, asking them things, the last book you read, the CD you have in your car right now, the type of music you're listening to. And my very last question was, so what are you, a Ginger or a Mary Ann guy? From Gilligan's Island, right? A lot of people think you can tell something about that answer. So Francesconi, Jim was up first, and I asked him, you a Ginger or Mary Ann guy, Jim? And he looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. I don't think Jim had any idea what I was talking about. I'm obviously not a Gilligan's Island fan. I had no idea how to answer that. The next week I had Tom Potter on, and we got to the end of the program, and I said, Tom, are you a Ginger or Mary Ann guy? He thought about it a second. He said, Ginger or Mary Ann? I said, yeah. He said, can I have both? And anyway, the point of the story being, be glad that I'm not asking the questions today, that I didn't come up with the questions. The City Club came up with the questions, so that's the moral to that story. I appreciate being here today. The debate will have several sections. First, each candidate will give a 3-minute opening statement. A coin toss determine the order of appearance in today's debate. Our timekeeper today is John Horvick over there. He'll have the time, and he also has a little bell that he will ring as we get close to the end of the time. We'll give each candidate a certain amount of time. We'll get to that in a second. So following the opening statements, candidates will respond to questions suggested in advance of the meeting by City Club members and the general public. A subcommittee of the City Club's Friday Forum Committee selected and edited the final set of questions. These are the only questions which will be asked here today. There will be no questions from the floor. We will rely on the judgment of our distinguished panel of City Club members here seated at the table right in front of me. They'll decide whether or not the questions have indeed been answered by the candidates. So if 2 of the 3 raise their cards indicating they feel the question has not been answered, then I will restate the question and ask the candidate to reply again. So, our panel, we have Dana Haynes, we have Kevin Erickson, and in the middle, Elaine McCall. We thank them for being here. Following the City Club's questions, each candidate will have the opportunity to ask 3 questions of the other. Following the rotation of candidate questions, each candidate will then make a 3-minute closing statement. Please be respectful of the candidates and their answers. Hold your applause until the end of the program, please. All right, time to meet our candidates. Sho Dozono earned an undergraduate degree from the University of Washington and a master's degree in education from Portland State University. After serving 3 years in the United States Army from 1968 to 1971, Mr. Dozono began teaching and coaching at Grant High School. In 1976, Mr. Dozono joined and later became president and chief executive officer of Azamano Travel, 2 positions he continues to hold today. In 1996, he led a community-wide effort that raised $11 million for Portland Public Schools. In 2001, Mr. Dozono and his wife, Lowen, organized 1,000 citizens to take part in the Flight for Freedom to New York City as a show of support for the victims of September 11th. In 2004, they also launched a national flight of friendship to Thailand to help jumpstart the return of tourism to the tsunami-affected areas there. Mr. Dozono has served as the president of the Portland Schools Foundation, a trustee for the Portland YMCA, the Portland Art Museum, and the Spirit Mountain Community Fund. He is a board member for many nonprofit organizations, including the United Way of Columbia-Willamette, the Oregon Sports Authority, and the Salvation Army Cascade Division. Sam Adams is a graduate of the University of Oregon. He began his political career as an intern and a staff person for Congressman Peter DeFazio. In 1998, Mr. Adams went to work for the Oregon House Democratic Campaign Committee and Democratic Majority Leader Carl Hostica. In 1991, he successfully managed Vera Katz's first campaign for mayor, and then he served as her chief of staff for 11 years. In 2004, Mr. Adams was elected to his current city commission seat and is now commissioner in charge of Portland's Office of Transportation and the Bureau of Environmental Services, as well as the City Council liaison to, among others, the Regional Art and Culture Council, the Association of Portland Neighborhood Business Districts, and Worksystems Incorporated. He is the founder of Innovation Partnership, which works to bring innovative solutions to persistent community problems in Oregon. He has served as a board member for numerous organizations, including the Cascade AIDS Project, Western States Chiropractic College, Portland, Oregon Visitors Association, Basic Rights Oregon, Wayne Morse Historical Park Corp., and the Lane County Public Welfare Board. All right, will the candidates please take the podiums?
Thank you, Russ.
So I have the podium now, and I can start.
You can, sir, and you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Well, thank you very much, Russ, and the members of City Club, and so many guests. I'm so happy to be here this morning. I'm honored to be here because City Club is the premier public affairs forum in the state, focusing on key issues of our time, encouraging civic engagement and training the next generation of leaders for our community. Before we begin discussing issues, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I immigrated to Portland when I was 10, went to Cleveland High School, and lived here ever since, raising 5 children in Portland Public Schools with my wife, Loan. I taught and coached at Grant High School, and for 20 years, I have owned and grown Osmoner Travel. I've been intensely involved in our community my entire adult life on issues ranging from civil rights, education, economic development. My campaign for mayor is an extension of all these experiences. So why am I running for mayor? People want a fresh perspective in City Hall. So what goes on inside that bubble bears some resemblance to real life on outside. City Hall insiders are too comfortable, while the basic needs of residents in Portland are not being met. I see a great city with enormous potential, but a tough economy for which we must prepare. Budget surpluses have been spent down on grand projects and cost overruns. People are nervous about basics. What's happening with our schools? Where are the jobs we need so people can afford to live in Portland, including our children? How do we keep our neighborhoods safe and affordable? When times are tough, we need public leaders with perspective, with diverse real-life experiences, with the ability to make tough choices, to do more with less. This is not a contest about who has the longest list of expensive projects for Portland. This election is about judgment, an ability to pull together coalitions in the public and private sectors to focus on short list of priorities, not for any one person to take credit, but to get things done for our community. Portland needs an advocate in the region, in Salem, and Washington, D.C. As Mayor Potter has seen and worked hard to fix, Portland needs more friends at every level and takes control, collaborative-style leadership I have practiced my whole life. As Hillsborough Mayor Hughes wrote just this week, it is a competitive world and is only going to get more competitive. Every city is fighting for more jobs and more businesses to build a sustainable economy. Portland needs to get its fair share of regional, state, and federal dollars and jobs, and the mayor must make this a priority. I will reach out personally to build coalitions to support Portland's priorities, and Portland will once again become a real partner in the region. In ways I never imagined, my life experiences have prepared me to become a mayor of a city I have loved since I was a child. Growing up on the East Side taught me that every neighborhood must share in Portland's success. We are, after all, one city. Being in business and serving on nonprofit boards has taught me that one must manage and plan for good times and bad. Working with thousands of friends and neighbors on issues we all care about showed me that Portlanders have extraordinary capacity for innovation and hungry for change. That is why I'm running for mayor.
All right, we have to cut you off there, sir. I've been told to stick to the time today. Be very strict with that. I will do that. Mr. Adams, your opening statement.
Well, first off, Russ, I want to make it really clear on your question. I, of course, would prefer the professor. Thank you. For those of you with the confused look on your face, ask a friend that got it. Portland is one of the nation's best cities. We are recognized around the world for being more sustainable, having a great quality of life, innovative businesses, and creative and smart people. Our government has the highest bond rating given to municipalities, and our city employees, many of them are recognized nationally for their expertise. I have served in government, and I have served as a chief of staff to Mayor Vera Katz and as a city commissioner, and from this experience, I can tell you, I have learned that only a mayor can set the direction for the city and enlist the city council and the entire community in setting a pace for change. And that's why I'm running to get Portland moving forward again. Because if you look under the surface of our accomplishments, we have some serious issues that we need to tackle, and we need to tackle them now. I'm going to focus just briefly on 3. Number 1, education. Every Portland parent should be able to plan for their child walking across the stage to receive their high school diploma. But in the school district in which we are now, 43% of our 8th graders will not go on to graduate from high school. And for students of color, that percentage is even higher. As mayor, this will be a hands-on, all-deck priority. I will raise money to expand programs like Open Meadows and culturally specific programs like the Black Parenting Initiative and the Native American Youth Academy, programs that work in keeping kids in class. I will work to bring back arts and culture educational classes along with athletics, and I will create a student endowment program so that good students from poor families have hope and the reality of going on to college or skills training. Issue number 2, every Portland family deserves a job opportunity that earns enough to pay their bills and maybe a little left over to enjoy some of the good life that Portland has to offer. Sadly, 21% of our neighbors and friends earn a poverty wage where they don't earn enough to even cover their basic needs. Issue number 3, I will work to protect the unique character of Portland's neighborhoods. Next city council will have to do a comprehensive plan. I'm the only candidate running with planning oversight experience. From day one in this campaign, I've been offering real solutions and real results instead of just political rhetoric and platitude. Leadership, we need to move Portland forward, can only come from the mayor's office.
Thank you both. We will now move to the portion of the program where I ask the questions prepared in advance by City Club members and the general public. The candidate to whom the question is directed will have 60 seconds to respond to the question. Following each answer, the opposing candidate will have the option of a 45-second rebuttal. As I mentioned, we are sticking to the time today. John has the bell. When you hear that, we're going to cut it off almost immediately, so keep that in mind. He's also giving some time cues down here from the table. By the way, the candidates have not seen these questions in advance. So here we go. The first question goes to you, Mr. Dozono. You've made much of your endorsement from Mayor Potter, reinforcing a perception that a vote for you would be the equivalent of a vote for a second term for Mayor Potter. How would you distinguish yourself from Mayor Potter?
I think if you look at my background is quite different from Mayor Potter. I do appreciate his endorsement. I do think he has done a great job of outreaching to the parts of the city of Portland, to residents who have not been part of our government. But my life experience as a private sector person and civic engagement is quite different. I think you need to look at my resume and to find out that I have been a leader in this community in different capacity than when Mayor Potter was chief of police. I will bring different life experiences, different style of leadership, and that is why I'm running for the mayor of the city, not to replace Mayor Potter, not necessarily to follow his coattail.
Mr. Adams, 45 seconds.
Mayor Potter has not endorsed me. Am I supposed to respond to that answer? Or?
You can decline.
Mayor Potter has not endorsed me.
Short and sweet, all right.
I'm giving you the best gift of all, time back in your life.
For you, you have a reputation for being intense and difficult to work with, sometimes even losing your temper with staff members and others. How do you respond to this characterization, and what have your 15 years in City Hall taught you about working with others?
Well, I started out as a campaign manager here at 26, and I'm 44 today. I'm not the same person today that I was at 26, and I had some rough edges and made some mistakes along the way, and I've learned from those. I get up every day smart enough to know that I don't have all the right answers, and I spend a lot of time and effort seeking out diverse views as part of what I think is good decision-making efforts. And it's what I've learned over the past 16 years in the business is I don't think that my drive to get results has lessened at all, but I've become a lot more sophisticated at how I go about achieving those results or seeking to achieve those results.
Perhaps for me is the advantage of age. I have learned a different style of leadership. Running a business as CEO is challenging at times, but working in the community, bringing people of different diverse background, to solve issues on behalf of our community has been my hallmark of my leadership style. Collaboration is so important in this community, bringing people together to unify people, to solve common issues, to make sure we are moving forward as a community, not because I have a personal agenda. That's my style of leadership, and I think people understand that is the kind of style of leadership we want in City Hall. Consensus is what we want. 5-0 vote is consensus. 3-2, oftentimes too contentious, does not represent what is good for our city.
This next question is for you, Mr. Dozono. Portland appears to be close to finalizing its first satellite urban renewal area, a process that would allow tax increment dollars from one area, normally tied to that area, to be spent in another part of the city. Do you generally support this concept? Why or why not? And do you support the current plan, which is to siphon money from the River District urban renewal area, which includes the Pearl District, and give that money to the David Douglas School District?
I support in general without a better alternative to spend some of the money being generated in the current urban renewal district, such as Lentz District. I question the wisdom of putting city dollars directly into another government, which would be David Douglas School System. I've supported passage of levies after levies for public education. I do not think it is necessarily wisdom by the City Council to put city money into another government without better understanding of how that would begin to put in future what other school district might come and ask for money to build another school system.
Mr. Adams?
Well, when you're a mayor or the member of the city council, there's no maybe button. You've got to vote yes or no on the issue presented before you. I support the efforts to get David Douglas additional resources from tax increment derived from downtown, because Douglas does not have a commercial center, does not have an industrial base. Therefore, it has a very difficult time passing any ballot measures. Since I've been was chief of staff and city commissioner, we worked hard to allocate any resources to schools equitably across the city. And David Douglas needs our help. They have had to pay, just like all the other school districts, for tax increment funding. They deserve this.
Mr. Adams, this question's for you. Marquee projects such as the aerial tram often receive public attention and funding, while lower profile basic services such as fixing potholes languish. As Transportation Commissioner, you have championed a tax increase to pay for road maintenance, as well as a costly proposal to move the Sauvie Island Bridge to the Pearl District. Is this an example of inspired leadership or lack of fiscal discipline? Can we really have our cake and eat it too?
Well, I don't agree with the premise of the question, and I don't think that the facts concur with the premise of the questions. No one's worked harder to get general fund resources to basic services, basic infrastructure like I have. Really boring basic stuff, but the 81% of one-time general funding that I have received as a commissioner in the last 3 years, 81% of it has been to basic transportation maintenance and safety issues. But Portland is a city with progressive values. We take pride in the fact that we're weird and different and unique. So I also pursue projects that keep us different and unique and our quality of life higher than other communities in the United States. So, I've been criticized for my advocacy efforts around the arts and culture, but I'm the Arts and Culture Commissioner, and if I don't advocate for it, who will?
I think the question regarding the Sauvages Island Bridge reuse, when I read political leadership talking about this is something good for Portlanders that will bridge the gap between one side of 405 to the other, I wonder what part of the city of Portland this commissioner has been speaking to, because when I'm out in the outer southeast, outer northeast, they don't see 405 as needing a bridge to gap the divide. They see the river or 205 or 82nd as being the divide that divides the east side and west side. I do believe it's a misspent priority. If we had all the money in the world, that may be a good thing to do. Not this time, not now.
Mr. Dozono, our infrastructure needs for maintenance and new projects far exceed our current revenue sources. What is your program to bring our needs and revenues in line with each other?
My understanding is that in the last two cycles, when there are extra money, the City Council has called it surplus fund or one-time funding. $32 million last cycle, $35 million previously. They're also debating about how to spend another $37 million, $100 million in last three fiscal cycles. I wonder how that money might have been spent for the core services prior to spending for other projects that may not be the core services that citizens of our residents of our city would like to see. Better accountability, better fiscal responsibility, and put money in the basic services before we put money into pet projects.
I have been told to restate the question from our panel. Our infrastructure needs for maintenance and new projects far exceed our current revenue sources. What is your program to bring our needs and revenues in line with each other?
For example, if the backlog on transportation needs are $9 million per year, we have $30 million surplus funds, one-time money. I'm suggesting that money could have been spent to meet those needs.
Rebuttal?
If I'm elected mayor, we'll go to two-year budgets. We'll budget for 2 years, and the off year we'll be digging into the policies of the city. We'll be digging in, looking for efficiencies in service areas of the city. Right now, one of the problems with the city budgeting process is we're constantly budgeting. Just as we end one budget year, 2 months pass and we're starting budgeting on the next year. We can go to biennial budgets, and in the off year we would dig in to look for efficiencies. In terms of the one-time resources, I encourage you all to take a look at the facts. You'll find that the bulk of the money went to public safety, affordable housing, and transportation. That's where the bulk of the one-time savings. I consider those investments, but I have called for in this budget cycle, because we are heading into a recession, the creation of a rainy day fund of $5 million, which is on top of our $45 million
That's time.
Reserve.
Mr. Adams, this question is for you. Many claim that Portland is in danger of becoming a playground for affluent empty nesters and unattached, college-educated young creatives. Explain why the number of families with children living in the city is on the decline and why this should or should not be an issue of public concern. What, if anything, would you do as mayor to retain families with young children in the city?
Our single best opportunity to make headway on this problem is the renewal of the 25-year comprehensive plan, which is up for renewal in the next 3 years. We have 1 million people that are going to be moving to the region, 300,000 people expected to be born or moving to the city of Portland. It is our single best opportunity to deal with the planning and to deal with the transportation, to do this in conjunction with, for the first time, with the school districts and with the county, and make Portland the most family-friendly city we can possibly be. It's going to take all these jurisdictions working together and with the private sector and academia to make Portland truly family-friendly.
Mr. Dozono, you have an option of a 45-second rebuttal.
Perhaps because I'm 20 years older than my opponent, I do have a different perspective about people who are over 60. I think they are part of the solution for the next 20 years. I welcome anyone who wants to live in our city of Portland, no matter what age they are. We should be building a city for all ages, from the young to seniors. We need to be building walkable neighborhoods. We need to be building affordable housing to attract families back to our city. They have been driven out because of high cost of housing. I would recommend PDC and City Council to really take focus on building family affordable housing for first-time homeowners. That's how you bring back families to our community.
Mr. Dozono, this question is for you. Although the state legislature is primarily responsible for funding schools and the city has no direct authority over school districts, what would you do as mayor to support high-quality education in Portland schools?
And if you look at my background as a civic engaged person, I've been part of the last 5 levies being passed in Portland Public Schools, and I've worked with other 5 school districts to help fund for basic needs of our K-12 education. I've done that as a volunteer, as a civic leader. As the mayor of this city, I would be the chief advocate to continue to build our school system to bring back what was once one of the finest school districts in the country. We need to be investing in our schools. That is a cornerstone of our community. We need to be not only thinking about K-12, but pre-K, community college investment, and partnering with our higher education. Portland State is a great urban university. We need to be looking at the whole spectrum from pre-K to higher education, make our community proud of our education system, and to bring back the luster we once had in our city.
Mr. Adams, you have the option of a 45-second rebuttal.
Well, I think most Portlanders share the value and the priority of the importance of public schools. And what I'm focused on is how do we actually make the improvements and solve the problems. And that's why focusing on the dropouts is so important, because our allocation from the state is based on student attendance. So it becomes a self-defeating spiral if we don't keep kids in school. Schools get less money, not to mention the fact the earning power of a dropout is about 2/3 less than someone with a college education. This is going to be an all hands on deck. I'll be part fundraiser in chief, part honorary accountability officer, and part parental involvement cheerleader if I'm elected mayor. We're going to put together an education compact.
Mr. Adams, this question is for you. You've made a career in politics, and political life appears to be central to your identity. Name at least one issue that you were willing to risk your political future over, and explain why.
Well, I'm also a gardener. I'm a son. I'm a brother. That's my mom. I've chosen a life of public service over other walks of life because government helped my family through tough times, and I want to try to do the same for others. I entered public service because I wanted to continuously change government. One thing I've risked my political career over, well, I actually campaigned to be the transportation commissioner for the city of Portland, knowing that the assignment came with the tram. And knowing that my name rhymed with the word tram. And instead of just leaving it to staff, we cleaned house. You saw me out in front, whether the news of the day on the tram was good news or bad news. I put myself out there, and if it had not come in on the revised timeline, and it had not come in on the revised budget, I wouldn't be a candidate for mayor.
Mr. Dozono, you have the option of a 45-second rebuttal.
For me, the choice was giving up taking the risk that my retirement would be challenged because I have been in private sector, never been in elective office. But my choice was very clear. Having been an engaged citizen in this community as a business leader and a civic leader, education advocate, I felt I had much more to give back to this community. My next 10 years, I believe, will be my best 10 years to provide and give back to this community in a way that certainly has been missing in City Hall. My leadership style is quite different. My life experience is different. I want to bring all those life experiences, learning to City Hall to lead the city to greater heights.
Mr. Dozono, this question's for you. Like most other government entities, the size and complexity of Portland city government has grown to meet the changing needs of the population. If we add government services in response to changing needs, perhaps we should also cut services in response to changing needs. What, if any, services or roles that city government now performs do you think should be discontinued?
Fortunately, in good economic times, we have grown our tax receipts. That's what I mentioned about the last 3 cycles, over $100 million in additional receipts that were not expected. So I don't believe that we need to be cutting services. What we need to do is to prioritize where we invest our dollars to make sure we get return on those investments. With the downturn in the economy, I believe investment in economic development is critical to our future of our economy, not only for the City of Portland, for the region. I've been part of a business community that's been recruiting business from all over the world. Our future is about recruiting green technology companies to build a new economy based on sustainability, renewable energy, wind power, solar power, wave technology, and others that we have not even imagined.
Mr. Adams, a 45-second rebuttal.
When I was Chief of Staff to Mayor Katz, we went through a program called ASR, and we looked to eliminate any duplication of administrative costs that were between bureaus. We found that bureaus had their standalone sort of support services, and we tried to centralize as many of those as possible and put the savings back into the services on the street. There are 5 uniformed officers in the police bureau right now that are doing background checks at a desk. I would civilianize those positions and restock the gang task force unit that has been cut of its on-street officers. That's why we go to a 2-year budget, if I'm mayor. In the off year, we'll be looking for savings like that, large and small.
This question is for you, Mr. Adams. In 2005, after nearly 2 years of study, City Club released a report that called public attention to a number of problems with the Portland Development Commission. The report was a catalyst that led to a number of mostly voluntary reforms by PDC. Since then, Commissioners Randy Leonard and Eric Sten have led efforts to bring PDC further under the control of City Council, perhaps endangering PDC's ability to act in a nimble, business-like manner and conduct sound investment-minded development rather than politically expedient development. Describe for us the ideal structural relationship between PDC and City Council and how that would best be achieved.
I think PDC is on its way back. I think PDC has been turned around. It's got good people, good new leadership, and I'm very excited about its future. I will tell you, though, why I think these reforms were necessary. There was a difference between us on this issue. I'm for growing Portland's sustainable and green industries. Vera Katz and Eric Sten tried to make this a priority with PDC starting 6-7 years ago, and they resisted. And in the meantime, we've lost a lot of our leadership position on what should be an industry that we own in reality and we own in perception. When you think of movies, you think of Hollywood. When you think of green industries, I want folks to think of Portland. Why PDC needs to exist to implement the City Council's directions. That's the reforms that we have made, is that they are there to implement the Council's directions. We don't do development deals. That's their job. We do the policy. They implement it.
Mr. Dozono, you have the option of a 45-second rebuttal.
On that issue, I was opposed to the City Council meddling in PDC affairs. I've appreciated the fact that PDC has been an independent, autonomous agency for 50 years, doing great things for our community. I do have a relationship with all 5 commissioners today. I think there are great appointments. As a mayor, how you can impact PDCs by appointments of volunteer commissioners, and City Council should not be meddling in affairs other than to be fiscally responsible for the entire budget. After that, I think we ought to be left to the commissioners and the outstanding professional staff we have.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. That ends this section of the debate. We move on now. During this portion of the program, each candidate will ask 3 questions of the other. The questions must be asked in 30 seconds. The opposing candidate will have 1 minute to respond, after which the questioner will have the option of a 30-second rebuttal. We will alternate between the candidates. We'll begin with Mr. Adams, your first question for Mr. Dozono.
So, Sho, you have criticized my position on Walmart, putting a Walmart in the Ardenwald neighborhood that would have dumped thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of new trips onto local streets in South Portland. You've criticized my position of opposition against Walmart. If you were to vote, so my question is very simple, yes or no. Would you vote yes or no to approve the Walmart application in Ardenwald?
My opposition to what your signage on City Hall is about, putting a sign that says anti-business is the message that you are sending to the rest of the country and rest of the world. I had not taken a position on Walmart. That was not my intent. Your intent is to say to the community at large that you have a edginess in your leadership to say, we don't want Walmart in our city. I don't think that is the kind of message you want to send to the business community. We want to be much more business friendly, take each issue on its merit, not necessarily suggesting that one of the largest merchandiser in the world is not welcome to our region.
Mr. Adams, a 30-second rebuttal.
Actually, the sign in my window says, no Walmart in Ardenwald. It's a simple question, yes or no. Again, when you're a member of the City Council, you don't get a vote, maybe.
Mr. Dozono, your first question for Mr. Adams.
Sam, you oversee transportation and environmental services. Media stories have recorded the backlog on projects have increased, costs have escalated dramatically, no bid contracts have been let, and monies have been moved from priorities such as repairing 23rd Avenue to pet projects like the $100 million Burnside-Cooch couplet. Now, we learned that project cost overruns can increase up to 25% before review is even taken. How can you defend this approach to managing taxpayer dollars and projects in Portland?
That's kind of the question, like, everything's wrong with transportation and why haven't you fixed it kind of question. The fact of the matter is we've made incredible progress in the past 3 years. 3 outside audits. I've changed out almost all the senior leadership at PDOT to take the agency in a new direction. I've managed to double the amount of general fund investment, which does not normally go to transportation, to double that investment in transportation. We did a study of the city's 25 most dangerous intersections, and we've gotten $11 million to address that in terms of improved engineering. I've been shown to take a willingness to take the heat for being transportation commissioner and a focus on the basic services. The resources that go to projects like the bulk of the resources for the bridge or the tram or the streetcar, these are not resources that can be used for basic maintenance. And it is a complicated funding process on the federal and state level for transportation, and I try to do the best with what we got.
I believe the question is about the 23rd Avenue and how that money was not used. And my understanding through the newspapers are that we need to refund the federal government for money that we've already spent because we're not going to complete that project. Other question was about the $100 million Burnside-Cooch couplet, that many of the residents on Cooch Street and many of the residents throughout the city don't think that is money well spent for 14 blocks from River to the 14th Street.
Mr. Adams, your next question for Mr. Dozono.
Well, just clarification, 23rd, the money's staying there. It'll be used to redo 23rd. It's not going anywhere. In terms of Burnside-Cooch couplet, my opponent started this race at his announcement opposing streetcar. He's now supporting it. And my question is, we have a $75 million ask before the federal government, and your mixed messages on streetcar have put at risk that application for $75 million for the East Side streetcar. How do you square your position on wanting Portland to be sustainable and yet speaking out against the streetcar one day and for it the next?
I believe my answer to that question is I've not opposed streetcar everywhere. My statement has been we do not need streetcars in every corner of our city. I support the streetcar that's in place today. I do support the East Side streetcar. I'm opposing the streetcar on the Burnside-Cooch couplet. Any other streetcar that doesn't make sense, we need to be looking at the streetcar project case by case. I do not oppose the concept of streetcars being in the city of Portland.
Mr. Adams, you have the option of a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, let's be clear, I have never proposed streetcars on every corner of Portland. What I have proposed is a 25-year plan preparing for peak oil, where we're going to be paying $4 a gallon and preparing for us to make a positive contribution to greenhouse gases, and with streetcars, where 80 delegations from around the world have visited Portland, where we're making an industry out of manufacturing the modern streetcar in addition to putting them back in the street and giving people cheap alternatives to driving alone in their car. When Americans are spending more on transportation than food, your inconsistency doesn't make sense to me.
Mr. Dozono, your next question for Mr. Adams.
Sam, my next question has to do with trust and the way politicians reinvent themselves. For the last year and a half, you have promoted a scheme to raise
Let's stop for a second. We need his microphone turned on, please. Try it now. We'll start the clock again.
My next question has to do with trust and the way politicians reinvent themselves. For the last year and a half, you have promoted to raise $500 million in taxes for roads, first a gas tax, then a street tax, and you fought to keep it off the ballot. Your website now says you favor a moratorium on new taxes for 6 months. So which Sam Adams are you asking people to vote for?
The Sam Adams who works with an 89-person steering committee and has 21 town halls to talk about the real issues facing us, the $422 million street maintenance backlog that'll grow by $9 million due to inflation next year. And we come up with a proposal and even agreement with the big oil industry, only to have them renege over a dangling participle in the end. The fact of the matter is I said no new taxes when I was elected to the City Commission until we got the local funding measure passed for schools. I waited 2.5 years to and audits and changeovers in leadership at transportation and involve the community like never before in the transportation funding issue. I lobbied Salem along with the Portland Business Alliance at my arm to get more funding for transportation. I think that, humbly, I think that I've been the most active transportation commissioner the city of Portland has seen since Charlie Hales.
Mr. Dozono, your option for a 30-second rebuttal.
My question had to do with your statement on your website, and you sent out an email blast to your supporters saying that you would support a moratorium on new taxes for 6 months. Is that still true?
Yes.
Well, we can save that maybe for your next question if you like. Right now, Mr. Adams, your last question for Mr. Dozono.
So you talked in your last question about trust, and obviously openness comes as a basis of trust. And my question is, who paid for your poll? You have, in the Willamette Week interview, you said that you wouldn't share with us who paid for your poll, and yet you talk about being open and transparent as a mayor. You know who paid for your poll, but you won't share with us. Maybe now would be a good time.
I think the question was, did Len Bergstein pay for the poll? And my answer to Willamette Week was, I do not know whether he had paid for it at that point in time. Clearly, Len Bergstein had promised to pay the pollster. That dollar amount has never been something I've been hiding. Auditor, who is in this room today, told me one time back in January, February, I could pay for the poll. Then he said I could not pay for the poll. Therefore, Len Bergstein chose to pay for the poll on his own. That was a poll that was taken back in December to determine whether I had opportunity to be a candidate for the city's mayor's race.
Mr. Adams, your option for a 30-second rebuttal.
Who paid for the poll? That's it.
Mr. Dozono, your last question of Mr. Adams.
My last question is about priorities. I grew up on the east side of Portland. This is the Portland where jobs, schools, public safety, and basic economies are everyday concerns. I support alternative mode of transportation like everyone here. But how do you explain to these Portlanders that cities should spend millions of taxpayer dollars to add a special bicycle bridge to cross 145 to the Pro District when so many streets and sidewalks throughout the city are unpaved and unsafe?
I take a balanced approach as transportation to the problems that we face collectively as a community. The bulk of the $11 million for safety projects went to East Portland, not my neighborhood in North Portland, not Southwest, not downtown. It went to East Portland. The bicycle bridge is cost effective, and it used to be that people would say that throwing your garbage away at your house was the cheapest way to deal with refuge. We now have a more enlightened and expansive definition of what cost benefits are, and the fact of the matter is establishing the Flanders Bike Boulevard that will happen when we get that bridge. If we get that bridge, is going to increase bike ridership out of Northwest Portland, which has some of the lowest bike ridership in terms of total mode split of any central business neighborhood. So you have a definition about sustainability and cost effectiveness that is different than mine.
Mr. Dozono, your option for a 30-second rebuttal.
Again, when I have been out in the community, when I talk about the Soviet Island Bridge being reused to bridge the gap between one side of 405 to the other, those citizens, residents, don't understand how $5.5 million or $7 million is chump change, not enough for people to worry about. It is a special interest to cater to the people of Northwest Portland and the Pro District. When it's offensive to other residents of our city, when we talk about $5.5 million or $7 million not being that much money, just to say is good for a handful of people or a small portion of our residents.
That's time. Gentlemen, thank you. That wraps up that portion. We'll now move to the final part of the program today, 3-minute closing statements from each candidate. We begin with Mr. Adams.
Well, before I get to my close, I just want to say that I think it's very dangerous when you have a leadership position to, for political gain, try to pit one part of the city against the other. The millions of dollars that we spent for transportation safety improvements could easily have been used in I think inappropriately used to make an argument that somehow I'm ignoring Northwest Portland, and neither would be true. We've talked a lot in this debate about the what and the how, and I want to use the close to talk a little bit about the why. Why I have a passion for public service, why I've dedicated my life to it. Why public education, good jobs, and good neighborhoods are so important to me. I could have had a life that led to very different outcomes than standing before you today as one of the leading candidates for mayor. Along the way, many people have had faith in me, more faith in me than sometimes I've had for myself. And teachers, employers, friends, and family like my mom and grandma and her partner Stuart have helped me along the way, and I'm very grateful. And when you distill down my vision for Portland, if I'm elected mayor, is for Portland not to be just a city that we belong to, but a city that we can believe in, and a city that is continuously improved and helped along the way by starting with helping each other. I want to thank you today for attending this debate. It's a deep honor to be part of this process. I want to thank Sho for being a worthy candidate along with the other candidates in this debate. Thank you.
Mr. Dozono, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. Portland is at a crossroads. We all see brilliant potential, but we face 3 fundamental challenges that cannot be ignored. People are hurting in their pocketbooks, and there's great uncertainty at the most basic levels. Portland is too expensive, and many of our residents are not confident they can afford to live in our city. Parents fear that their children will not be able to stay in Portland because of high cost and shortage of family wage jobs. It must be our next mayor's highest priority to attack this challenge of affordability and real jobs. Our manufacturers need skilled workers. Our healthcare system needs nurses, health professionals, and we have a good start on green commerce. I will focus on this challenge while convincing businesses that Portland is a great place to call home. My opponent and I have very different backgrounds, and it is reflected in the second challenge. How do you handle taxpayers' money in good times and bad? City has squandered surpluses that we need right now. My opponent has proposed a massive tax increase, nearly $500 million at a time our citizens can at least afford it. We all like grand plans, but they have to fit our budget. I have run a growing business in good times and bad, and believe me, the travel industry can be a roller coaster. I know how to set priorities and stick to budgets and never lose sight of the fact that we all face a bottom line. There are times when grand plans need to be put on hold. We must take care of the basics. Third challenge should be the easiest, but it has plagued my opponent in his year in City Hall. Put simply, we need priorities to stick to budgets and avoid cost overruns. I know that the public does not accept projects after project running over budget. That's not how the world runs. That kind of thinking must stop. Just imagine how safe and green our infrastructure could be if we did not waste so much public money. I don't blame the city workers or staff. It is a job of leadership to build a mindset that budgets matter, that taxpayers' dollars are precious, and that we will not reach our greatest potential as a city if we do not manage our resources. As mayor, I want to give back to Portland. I want to rebuild confidence in our government, and most of all, in our ability to collaborate and work together. We can and will improve our schools. We can and will make this city safer. We can and will respect diversity. We can and will meet the needs of our poorest residents, and we can and will build a strong, sustainable economy. What this city needs is a leader who takes action. I've created jobs in the past, and I know how to recruit business for the future. I've rallied thousands to support our schools and help raise millions of dollars. I am a proven leader that will make our schools successful in the future, and I will bring focus and accountability to our spending priorities. I want to thank the City Club for this great opportunity. I hope to earn your vote on May 20th.
I encourage all of you who value these debates to consider joining and otherwise supporting City Club. Help us continue the good works in the public interest. Sam, Sho, thank you for an enlightening debate. Special thanks to Rod Lewis, our moderator, John Horvick, and our panelists, and thank all of you for being here. We're adjourned.
Thank you.